We all like spicy food. We all like goat meat or whatever the unique circumstances for you is. How do you begin the work of owning your individuality in this space? How do you begin to say to yourself, yes, I value my culture, I value my people, I value my way of being, but I also am an individual and I want to express that individuality. As people of diasporic origin, living authentically means delving deep into our cultural legacy burdens. At Rich Poor Aunties, we go beyond financial success, embracing rich insights, truth, and authenticity. Join me, Christabel, a nurse leader, writer, and African auntie, as I share insights and practical resources such as self-care strategies, mindfulness practices, and deep cultural analysis. Drawing from my experiences overcoming a controlling religious and traditional African background to embracing life as an openly gay woman, I've gathered knowledge to help you live fully and authentically. Each episode aims to help you uncover your subconscious narratives, prioritize your mental health, and nurture a meaningful community that truly reflects who you are. We'll explore how merging our heritage of collectivism with individualism can lead to a peaceful state of interdependence. Consider this podcast your sanctuary to redefine success, discover joy in the everyday, and reshape the narratives that have defined you. Stay connected and deepen your journey by joining our community on Instagram or engage with our discussions on Substack. Let's explore what it means to live authentically together. It's time we talk about boundaries. I know. It's talked about all the time, all over social media. But I don't think that it is talked about in the context that I want to talk about it in. Those of us of diasporic origin, i.e., we grew up in the global South or with parents from the global South, ours is it's different. It hits different when we're talking about boundaries. A lot of us are still used to living in multi-generational households. So if that is us, talking about boundaries is not going to be the same thing as people who grew up in hyper-individualistic Western cultures. It's just not the same. Because this is the thing about those of us of diasporic. We value our community. We value our families. We value our cultures. We value our food. We value our language. And because of globalization and the effect of colonialization, a lot of us are dispersed from our homeland, i.e. diaspora. The circumstances we're dealing with is different. Like, a lot of us grew up with parents who are trying to maintain our cultural heritage in the midst of a foreign land. And this is the case with like first-gen babies. I'm not first gen. I'm an immigrant, but I know what that direct experience feels like. I moved to the US when I was 21. And when I moved here, I didn't know that 18 years later, I would still be here. I had no clue. I did not know how long it would take for me to ensure that my family had resources that was long lasting. And it ended up taking as long as it's taken. And in my case, that's 18 years. And I know that a lot of what keeps me centered, a lot of what keeps me from feeling like I've lost who I am is the attachment I have to my culture. I eat 90% Nigerian Ghanaian still. I speak my language. I talk to my mom every single day, even though we're thousands of miles away from each other. And for those of you who can resonate with this or who grew up with African parents or parents from the diaspora, you know what this feels like. That need to be attached to where we came from or where our parents came from. It's a strong need. And so when I'm speaking about boundaries, I'm talking to us. Okay? It's a very classic case of if you know, you know. You grew up in a collectivistic household where the common theme is this is what we do, this is how we act, this is how we dress, this is who we marry, this is what we eat. We all like spicy food. We all like goat meat or whatever the unique circumstances for you is. How do you begin the work of owning your individuality in this space? How do you begin to say to yourself, yes, I value my culture, I value my people, I value my way of being, but I also am an individual and I want to express that individuality. That's where boundaries come in. I say all the time that boundaries really shouldn't be discussed with people who grew up hyper individualistically because y'all got it down. You can just go into your bedroom and close the door and you can do that. But for many of us, we did not feel like that was ever an option. We don't talk back. We don't move that way. And oh boy, does it show up in our relationships later on in our lives, right? It shows up, especially if we are ever in relationship with other people who may not have necessarily grown up the same way. I know for me, it was definitely something I had to work on. I had this badge of honor when it came to overextending myself. I think people call it people pleasing now, but really it's a cultural thing. It's not just people pleasing for no reason. It has a background. It has context, and the context is cultural identity. So if I picked up my partner or her family member from the airport every time they came into town, and they did not reciprocate that, I took such an offense to it because this is what we do. You pick up people from the airport. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And I still do that for the most part. But the difference now for me is that I have detached my worthiness from that act. So when I can't pick up someone from the airport because of truly constraining circumstances, I don't feel like such a shitty person. I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to host guests properly. I don't know how to entertain my guests. I don't know how to be welcoming. And vice versa. When someone is not able to pick me up from the airport, who typically would do this, I can learn to not feel such a sting as a result of them being like, dude, I would love to pick you up from the airport, but it's 1 a.m. and your flight gets here at 1 a.m. and I have to work tomorrow morning, and an Uber will be really the preferred method for you to come to the house. And so doing work to unhook my sense of self-worth and therefore my judgment of others from these actions has been a long process. And I didn't even realize I needed to do that work because, listen, I was just stuck on, this is how it looks like to be a good community member. And if you're not doing this, you're not a good community member. And I don't want to fuck with you. And truly, it's hard to learn to unhook from that narrative if you live in a society where everyone around you or almost everyone around you really do not be picking people up from the airport. If everyone around you is hyper individualistic, it makes, at least in my case, it made it seem like I had to hold on for dear life to these things that I grew up learning about how to show up in community. But if I don't look at that and I look at my life and my circumstances and learning that it is possible to still show up for community while showing up for myself. And my job is not to look at what everyone else is doing or not doing, but my job is to stay true to myself. That changed the game for me. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it. If you're like me, where your badge of honor is how much you can do for people, not because you're being a martyr, but because that is your cultural legacy, what do you do when you realize that you need to unlearn that a little bit? How do you go about unlearning that? And that's where boundaries come in. Yeah, it's taken me a really long time to unmap and unhook my worthiness from what I can and can't do for people. Because the truth is, I value service in community. I value that part of my heritage. I value that part of my culture, and I value that part of collectivism. And the difficulty is finding the balance, finding the middle ground, finding the place where I'm just yeah, I do expect you to show up in community for me. I do expect that you'll bring me soup when I am sick in the hospital. I do expect that of others, and I do expect it of myself. However, if due to dire circumstances, and yes, that's the part of me that is still collectivistic, it really does have to be dire circumstances. If due to dire circumstances and I am in the hospital sick and you can't come and visit me, I can learn to be I absolutely understand. I understand, but please make sure you come when immediately you're able to. Finding that balance is difficult, but it is worthwhile doing the work to learn where that balance lies for you. And that's why the conversation I keep having is, what is the intersection of collectivism and individualism? It is rightly interdependence, but finding a way to do interdependence while in the midst of hyper-individualistic mainstream culture and a collectivistic, private, personal, familial culture can be a really hard tightrope to walk. And I just want to let you know that it is possible to do that work. And it takes refinement, and you won't always get it right. And it will take questioning and unquestioning yourself and learning and relearning. And so on this episode, I just want to share a few things I have learned that has helped me along the way, if these are things that are of concern to you. The first I've hinted on before is hooking your worthiness from what you're able to do or not do for people. Collectivism shames and holds us hostage because it tells us that if we're not able to do these things in this way, we are no good. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that's a lie. That is a big lie. If we have a personal ethic of showing up for the people we love, that is all we need. We don't need to prove it by self-sacrificing to an extent that is not sustainable. We don't need to prove it, not to ourselves, not to others. And on the flip side of that, people don't need to prove it to us constantly either, because that is exhausting for everyone involved. We like to romanticize the past. We like to romanticize what our ancestors did. But the truth is, we live in a different we live in a different period. We live in a society that is inundated by capitalism and the effects of that, which means that people have limited PTO. They truly do, right? And as much as they would love to show up for you, sometimes they just can't because they do not have enough PTOs. And we have to learn to accept that. It is difficult to understand that concept if we keep going back to Oh, during my great grandparents' era, they would just show up anytime, anywhere. Not no more. Not in the age of PTOs. It's not that easy to do. We have to be realistic about where we are in existence, in history. And that is a hyper-capitalistic society. That means that people have to trade time for money. And this is time I honestly believe that we would rather be given to community and the people we love and cherish. But alas, that mortgage has to be paid. That rent has to be paid. So give people grace. Give yourself grace. Okay, so that's the first step. Accepting where we are in society. The second step is understanding that your worth is inherent. Nothing you do or do not do means anything about your worthiness. Hear that again. Nothing you do or do not do means anything about your worthiness. I know that is something I needed to hear. I needed to hear it over and over and over again over the last decade of being in therapy, because I really did think that the actions I did was what made me deserving of people's love, or the actions I didn't do made me deserving of people's distance from me. And that is not true. It is really not true. And I know that this is a truth that is hard to learn, especially if you didn't grow up being taught it. And it takes time to internalize. It takes time for the neural pathways that tell us that our worthiness is dependent on our actions. It takes time for that neural pathway, for those neural pathways to be rewired. But the most practical tip I can give you when it comes to rewiring those neural pathways is hella self-talk. You have to have a baseline of understanding that your worth is inherent, and don't worry about believing it yet. Just worry about every time you encounter something within you that tells you that the way you act or don't act is what determines your worth. Worry about, in that moment, correcting the thought. You literally have to take it moment by moment to say to yourself, okay, I see myself thinking this thing again, and I know it's not true. Hey, hear me in your head telling you it's not true. Because you couldn't pick someone from the airport does not mean you are a bad person. And why do I keep using this airport thing as an example? Obviously, it's because of a personal relationship to that. Because I know that for myself, for years, I used to judge myself and others because of that simple act. So I'm here to, again, remind you, your worth is not based on what you do or do not do. Okay? So that's the second thing. And the third thing I want to help you remember is that finding community that accepts you as you are and nurtures you in all your glory takes work, and it takes patience, and it takes time. I know that you are craving to have people who can come through for you when you need them to come through for you, especially because you pride yourself on coming through for those who need you. And I know that it is possible for you to get that community, but it takes time. It takes effort. It takes intentionality. It takes grace. It takes a deep commitment to showing up as truly as you possibly can. And that includes being able to identify to yourself your capacity when you are able to do something, when you're not able to do it. And sometimes, because we do not know our own capacity, we may project that onto others. Just because we are able to overextend ourselves, we think that everyone should be able to overextend themselves too, like we do. Like I always say, it comes back to you knowing you. You doing the work to learn you. You doing the work to unhook from your cultural legacy burdens that tells you that this is the way things ought to be all the time. Because that is not always true. You have to discover for yourself what within the beliefs that you have been raised to have that are now subconsciously embedded in you, which of those feel true to you. We haven't talked about boundaries much, because I think boundaries is one of those things that also takes a really, really long time to learn what it means for you specifically. And it takes even a longer time to recognize that boundaries are internal and not external. Certainly, we can hope that other people will know and respect our boundaries when we speak it to them. But the truth of the matter is sometimes it's a lack of internal regulation, a lack of being able to say, I do not have capacity. Because to me, that is what it means to have boundaries. To recognize where your capacity ends and being able to explain that to another person. Being able to love yourself and love another person. Like where that intersects. That's my favorite definition of boundaries. Where the ability to love yourself meets the ability to love another person. In the example we've been using thus far, when it comes to picking someone up from the airport, we desire that because we love them. We want to show up for them in that way. We want to make it easeful for them. And then we check in with ourselves. And then we say, oh, I can't do this today, this time around, because I am too tired. I have to work tomorrow morning. I don't have money for gas. Whatever the case may be, we ask ourselves those questions, right? And then we're like, oh, the boundary I have to set here, the loving boundary I have to set here is to tell them I won't be able to come pick them up. That is, for me, what boundary looks like. It's not then asking them, why are you expecting me to come pick you up? It's not on them. It's on us to do. It's on us to uphold our boundaries. And so I just wanted to pop in real quick with that little gem as I do these warm-up series to get the podcast rolling again. Let me know. Hit me up on Instagram, DM me, comment on the podcast. Let me know how this process has gone for you. If you struggle with finding space between having a collective ideological stand-in while navigating your individuality, I am really curious because I can't be the only one who constantly has to navigate these things. And I hope those tips I shared helps. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. The ratings matter so much. The reviews matter. And if you think you know at least one person who can benefit from this, please share it with them. It means the world to me. Until next time, take care of yourself.